to Journey Through the Interverse. Hello, hello. Hi, Alexis. How are you today?
Hello. I'm in a weird mood. Last couple days I've just been feeling weird. Like just an odd, kind of sad, kind of energetic, kind of in a weird spot. I don't really know how to explain it well, but yeah, I don't know what's going on, but the best way to describe how I've been feeling lately is just odd. How are
Yeah.
you?
I feel exactly the same. I'm tired. Today's the first day of my moon, which for being the first day, it's not too bad. And but I just feel I just want to like lay around and we were not here last week. And for those of you that listened to our last week's episode, because we ended up just sharing an archive chat, but we did have a conversation, like an introduction to the archive chat. And so if you listen to that, then you know that last week was crazy. It was busy. And so we had to just make that decision to take that night off, so to speak. And so just thinking about everything I had going on last week, and I was just like, why is everything, happening this week or this week? And I'm so happy now being in the following week in this present moment that all of that happened because while I was just felt like I was stretched really thin and I was a little stressed this week I literally I don't have the energy. Like then I had the energy, but it was just like I was using every little bit of it. Like today and the past like couple days, I just have been not wanting to do anything. I've been moody. And so yeah, I'm happy that I don't really have much going on this week and I'm really grateful. So I'm like, thank you for designing it that way because at first I was like, what is this mess?
I love that. And honestly, I feel that it's like your body and your mind was preparing you for this period of your cycle, which, you know,
Yeah.
period. And I love that the more you start paying attention to your cycles, because um, generally in the US, I don't think a whole lot of us really pay too much attention. Like, I didn't start paying too much attention to my cycle until like this year. But the more you pay attention to it, the more you realize your body really does prepare you
Yeah.
for these experiences because there's four of them. So through each of them.
Yeah. No,
So it's really interesting. Like you knew, like your body, your mind knew. You're like, get all this stuff done because next week
yeah.
you are going to be able to.
Which was also crazy because it wasn't only just me, it was also like the universe, you could say too, because like at least half of the projects and tasks that I had was not like I wasn't the one who set these dates. Like they were like, okay, this is where we're gonna do it. And then when I put it on the calendar and I'm looking at everything, I'm like, there's an eclipse happening. It's a total full moon eclipse. That's gonna be there's a lot going on there. And I'm like, oh, but that'll be cool. That'll be interesting. I got this. And then the week came and I'm like, okay, so can we just like upload an archive chat and share that with you guys? And Alexis is amazing and supportive and she wouldn't say
Honestly, when
away.
you said that, I was like, I actually need the same thing. But like, I'm not as in tune with myself. So I'll just kind of like go through the motions, even if it's not
Yeah.
the best thing for me. Like, I'm getting better with it. So when you were
Yeah.
like, oh, how do you feel about doing an archived episode? I was like, yes. Like, what a
Yes.
relief. Like,
Yeah.
what a relief that I could also have like a night off after
Yeah.
having a chaotic week or so. Like, it was definitely needed. But yeah, it was a
Yeah.
great episode too.
Yeah, definitely check it out. It was we were talking about who is the navigator of your lucid dream and we more so shared our dreams and our experiences like not having that control or just like interesting like you could almost say power dynamics within the dream and so it was really good and we're actually going to share another archive chat that was like part one to that. So the first part we did on Instagram and that was more specifically on Robert Wagner's book, what is it, gateway to the lucid dreaming, gateway to the inner self. So we
Yeah.
focus more so on that book and his techniques and what we found interesting. And then the archive chat that we just released was taking one of those like techniques and perspectives of like who's in control of the dream, and sharing the experiences we had with like that being up for debate, right? Like showcasing many different perspectives and experiences with that. So if you haven't listened to it yet, definitely check that out. So Jen K is here and says, hello, Urania and Alexis. Hi, Jen.
Hello.
Welcome. Thanks for being here. Yeah, so any of you all tuning in live, feel free to say hello. And if you're listening to the replay or watching the replay, feel free to say hello and let us know what you like about this chat. Let us know if any of these dream symbols are you've experienced in dreams, are any of them recurring symbols. And if you want to share how they showed up or how they made you feel, definitely feel free to do so in the comments. So before we get into the chat tonight, the topic, I do want to talk about the cosmic climate, as Alexis was saying that, she's been feeling off this week and kind of like meh. And I've been feeling the same. I've been talking to a few people and it's been just like, we're in between eclipses, that's for sure, right? A lot of us are either in like some sort of sickness and cold, or we're like getting over one. And some of this stuff is like the integration. I call this the integration period. I didn't come up with that, but this is just literally us like in this experience of like so many things have come up, and the planet shifting energy, we're changing seasons and we're in between eclipses. So naturally we are purging and also trying to like calibrate and find a new place of equilibrium, which is right on point for the astrology and where we are right now, as we're recording this on March 19th. So it is the day or night before the equinox. And just to throw this into the mix as well, we began this week with a waning gibbous moon in Scorpio. And so we know that the moon, we've talked about this before, is there's some interesting energy with the moon in Scorpio. It's not like the most coziest, like comfortable place, especially with the waning gibbous phase, where there is more than likely an experience, through dreams of like having dreams that represent or like indicate closure or like letting go, and also whatever you experience during the full moon, and in this case the eclipse, whatever came up, like we are in the integration process of that, and our dreams may reflect and reveal further of what that reveal was, and then what we have to do to sort of like implement that or bring it into, to integrate it, right? So there's still some adjustments that need to be made. Like we have to release things. This is also a point of reflection. So we're just gaining a little bit more clarity, and actually emotional feels around that. And then I'll also add that at the beginning of the week, the moon made a square connection, which is very dynamic connection to Pluto in Aquarius. And so naturally, like Pluto and then the moon in Scorpio is going to bring up things out of the shadows, right? It's going
Oh yeah.
to also highlight karmic, signatures and emotional entanglements. And with that waning gibbous energy and in this release phase, it's more so going to highlight what it is that we are needing to release. And so with all that to say, Alexis, you're not crazy. There's nothing wrong with you. Not saying that you thought you were, but I always tell people this because I'm like, no, this is literally in the field right now. This is in the energetics. And so just breathe, just feel it out, process it, take your time with it. There's no set in period where you're like, oh, like I shouldn't be feeling this way, just like let it ride and, do what you got to do. So,
100%, 100%. And I've been not only seeing it with myself too, the oddness of how I'm feeling, but like the way people have been acting lately, the way people are driving lately. There's just something different, something odd, something off. Uh, it's definitely in the air. Like you can definitely feel it.
yeah. And there's big, big, big change. One of the things that, one of my former teachers has been speaking about for probably at least 2 months, and I've been seeing it. And I tend to not, I'm not resisting this, but I don't want to be an echo chamber, or I just observe, right? And I see what's coming through. But I'm seeing in my cards, there's like there's a message that keeps coming through of like a choice point or like a crossroads. And but there's like this very strong push to like step out of your comfort and finally just do the thing that you've been tiptoeing, into, and finally just fully jumping.
Hmm.
And, if you are in resistance to it, like that discomfort is going to just get so much worse, where it's like we're literally like you just have to jump into the unknown basically. And so and it's like very Aries energy, but also at the same time there's like a slowness to it as well, because I
Yep.
feel like we're getting a bit of a grace period and a slow start to Aries season with Mercury retrograde and Venus retrograde.
Oh
So
yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
definitely something. I it's always so interesting to pay attention to like what's going on. I mean, cycle. I was just talking about that with cycles, but then you start getting into the moon phases and then the planetary placements and everything, and it's just like it just flows. It's so crazy.
Yeah, we're all synced up.
Thank you for those insights.
Yeah, absolutely. Stay tuned for more, friends.
Yes.
So, one quick announcement I want to share now in case we forget at the end, but you all know that we have been facilitating a dream circle, and it has been a weekly circle, and we decided to change that. So we're going to refine it and consolidate it to once a month, just for everyone's energy levels and commitment. And yeah, I just feel like it'll be more simplified. And yeah, so we're going to do it once a month. It's going to be the first Tuesday of every month at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So the next meeting is going to be on April 1st. And yeah, at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So you'll have the link to that in the description of this video. And we hope to see you there. And of course, it's all donation based and everything. So same, but we're just going to condense it to once a month. So
Yeah.
cool.
It has been a very busy, including everything we want to into our schedule.
Yeah.
So it just
Yeah.
makes so
It's
much
like,
more sense to have some space to
yeah,
breathe
we got
and to
really
conjure up
ambitious and
dreams.
excited. Yeah. Like if we start getting a lot of momentum and it's just like we're constantly booked for the 1 month, then we'll consider opening up more.
Yeah.
But I think that right now, just for all the energy and like the integration and scheduling and everything and our commitments, it makes more sense to do it once a month for now, and then just
Yep.
see. We're always open to changing that. So
Absolutely.
awesome. All right. So tonight we're going to do a fun episode, a fun chat on dream symbols. Whenever we do these episodes, it's just like, it's crazy how deep we can go with the
Oh yeah.
symbols. And it's just so much fun. I think a lot of our listeners really enjoy these episodes. And, when you do have a dream with these particular symbols that we talked about, then you come back and check out what we said and see if anything stands out, or you can add to the conversation by sharing in the comments. And yeah, it's just fun to also go back in your dream journal and see, what dreams you had with these symbols, we had an interesting moment tonight where Alexis and I both were looking through our dreams, and we came across the same, that we had dinosaur dreams, right? I didn't think I ever had a dinosaur dream. And so I saw that and I was like, oh my goodness. And it was a really cute, fun dream. I don't know if you actually got to like read it, but yeah, it was really funny. So, but that'll
No,
be fun.
I love that. I love it because one of the things that when we're going through the dream symbols, we have to we look into our journals and see if there's dreams that have these symbols so we can share our personal experiences. So we're like looking at all these different dreams, and one of the dreams that I had, the one dream I had with dinosaurs, was one of them where I've like read that a ton of times. So like as soon as I saw a dinosaur, I like skipped it because I know exactly what dream that is, and
Nice.
it doesn't have any of what I was
Yeah.
looking for. But when you sent that to me, I thought it was so funny because the dream that I marked as like having been one of my most read, you were like, oh my God, I just found this. I'm like, that's so funny. And
Right.
like, we're gonna have to actually do an
Maybe,
episode where we
yeah.
talk
Well, we
about
did do one
dinosaurs.
on dinosaurs.
Did
Didn't,
we?
was it on, I think we did a chat on dinosaurs and I think it was on the podcast.
I
I'm
don't
pretty
remember
sure.
it. Oh my
Yeah,
God,
but
we've
we
had
did
so
do
many
one.
discussions that like
Yeah,
I'm like, yeah, we've
pretty
never done
sure.
this before.
No, we did, and that's why I was kind of annoyed because I didn't think I had one, and then I came across and I was like, oh dang it! I was like, what are the odds we're going to talk about dinosaurs again? But maybe we can mention it on next week's open chat for the.
Yeah, why not?
So one of the things I noticed, and also just reflecting and looking through my dream journals, is that what I missed that I used to do was when I first started like intentionally writing my dreams when I made it a whole practice, right? I was so organized, like my Capricorn was on fire, where before I even wrote the dream, I wrote the location, like if there was a location, so the scene, I wrote the genre, I wrote the dream symbol. So in like my very first like official dream journal, it's so organized. So I was able to look at it and see like, oh, okay, this had this dream symbol, this had this. And then, that didn't last very long. and
No,
I noticed that my dreams that I was writing were actually they were a lot shorter. So they were like a paragraph, maybe a page. And my dreams now that I write are several pages. So
mhm.
I just want to like get to it. So I never write all of that out, but it was like so easy to kind of skim through and I could just get a survey. So I might try to start doing that again and see if that sticks. But that was really cool to see that
Gonna
organization.
have to go through them and do like book stickers, pop it at the
Right?
top. Like
That's
this has
fun.
books,
Yeah.
this has houses, this has cars. So you just have
Right?
an easier way to go through them. I noticed the same thing with myself. Like I was looking at these in the beginning of my dream journal when I really first started the practice. Like I had the same thing. Like even to the like, oh, I drank this tea before bed, and it's this day with this like here are the symbols like dotted, and then here's the whole dream. And like I am actually a little disappointed in myself that I have fallen off with my personal dream. Like I feel like I anymore pretty much just voice message them to
Yeah.
you. But I'm
Yeah.
starting to feel like I need to sit down with my new journal and go through all of like
Yeah.
after this, I'm probably going to find where I left off with my dreams in my dream journal, and then start going back to our conversations from like
We need to start noting in
February.
our voice messages, like just after we leave a dream and say dream and then like a title or something so we know. Because I mean, the fact that you can go back and find some stuff, it's like our voice messages are like oceans. Like it's so deep, it's so like vast and expansive that it's just like
It's a lot, but I'm
maybe
ready to
start
dive
doing
in
that.
because I feel like if I can start right now, like going through from, so I know that my new journal, I think I ended my I had a strong start to my year, but then around February 18th I like completely dipped off and went only to voice messages. So if
Yeah.
I like go to that and I just start like writing in each of them, it'll inspire me to kind of like keep the momentum
Yeah.
flowing in both like directions. I also like I was going through because I was having difficulty finding these topics in my dreams for some reason. Like I know I've had them, but written down, I was having a really difficult time finding them. And I was on my Tumblr, which is one of the places that I used to go to all the time to write my dreams that I don't anymore. And I was like, I have so many dreams on my Tumblr, and I am a little disappointed that I stopped doing that. But
Yeah.
I have been going through a change in my life right now, in my priorities,
Yeah.
like a real big shift. Like, I mean, even in my tarot, like you were talking about the messages that were coming through with you, and I've been having similar messages coming through where it's like, let go of those restrictions and move into the direction you need to move into, and just put things into action. And it's like right in the back of my ear, just like chirping at me nonstop. And I'm like, all right, I have to discipline
Yeah.
myself. This is
Yeah.
it. I like,
Yeah.
I can't, it's like you walk through this door, you fall behind, and I really don't want to fall behind.
Right. And it's like that cardinal energy is what we're stepping into. And we already were feeling it pretty strongly with the retrogrades in Aries. But yeah, with this cardinal energy, it is kind of like that initiation and the turning of the wheel and just getting things started. And for cardinal signs such as, Libra, it can be challenging, right? And like it, you would think that they might have more of an ease with it, but that's sometimes they don't. And so, yeah, it's just getting that. Once you get it started, though, usually, and you get in the flow,
Yep.
then you can pick it up. But my biggest thing is like I'm really good at, for the most part, I'm good at starting. It's kind of like letting go of the routine, because it's like I start trying to force it. And
Yeah.
so now I've had like a system of different routines. So if I'm done with something, then I move on to another one. So they all kind of rotate. So I can like rotate between them. But it's hard when I notice and I start guilting myself. Like, I'm like, oh, I'm not doing this anymore, and it's the thing. And so that's kind of where I have my challenges. So
Yeah. And this is definitely a time for like introspection and looking at what you've been doing lately, how things have been working out for you, and if you want to, pursue this one thing, or if you want to go in this direction, or how do you like the way your routine has been? Do you want to switch it up? So like I feel like right now is a really good time to be reflective of what works and what doesn't. And it's kind of nice for you to have that like multi-optional wheel of different routines, so like you don't get bored.
yeah, yeah. I think it's my Pisces that likes like my Mars and Pisces, and that is my navigator. Speaking of navigator, it's what you would call like the chart ruler, right? But this like my navigator for my life, like how I, make decisions and act on things. And I've learned, because with Pisces is like it's all over the place. So, and I have a good enough Scorpio and, Capricorn to kind of like help to guide it. And that was a way that I realized I'm like, okay, if I have like a bunch of little routines, I can just switch it up and not guilt myself, the Capricorn coming in to be like, just make me feel like shit.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like,
it,
yeah, I've
it's
I've learned how to literally navigate that.
it's a lot. It's a lot. But the more we talk about it, the more we acknowledge it within ourselves, the easier things become, and so on and
Exactly.
so forth.
Exactly.
I'm like, I feel that energy of just like stop, like I just need to stop being so fluid, and I have to like
Yeah.
ground myself.
And you will. You will.
Yeah.
You'll do it. I
Feeling.
know you will.
Huh.
So the symbols that we picked tonight, as I'm looking at them, I'm like, they're so perfect for the changing of the seasons. Like, so Alexis and I have a list of dream symbols, and we just go through them and like, okay, which ones are calling to us? Which ones do we want to talk about? And I had thought about gardens because I was sharing a dream in the lucid dreaming class recently. So I was like, gardens sound good, caves are fascinating. And then Alexis picked insects. And I'm looking at this, I'm like, this is all perfect for this change of the season. It's like, well, I want to start with the cave. So it's like
Mhm.
we have the cave, and we'll talk about what that symbolizes, but then it makes sense to go into gardens and then insects and just like that flow of the energy right now, and how the dynamic is changing. And so it'll be interesting to see if any of these symbols pop up in our dreams as we shift seasons here in the northern hemisphere. If you're in the southern hemisphere, it might be going into the cave, right?
Mhm.
To the end. But yeah, so you want to start with caves?
Yeah, let's do
Okay.
that.
So what do you have marked for caves as far as symbols?
So what I have, now I use I use a lot of the same dream books because I relate to them a lot, or dream dictionaries, and I foolishly always leave them on the other table instead of bringing them over. But what I got from those, which I'll just have in the post when we
Yeah,
post.
share them. We've shared them in other ones too. And
Yes,
we
that's
just
true.
to, before you get started, And just as a disclaimer, yes, always go with your intuition.
Yep.
Alexis and I like, to use dream dictionaries just to get another perspective,
Yep.
because we do tend to get, caught in our specific perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is the beauty of sharing your dream with other people, because they give you their perspective, and whatever resonates. And so it's good to look at it from another angle. So that is, I feel like I can say for both of us, that's why we enjoy looking at the dream dictionaries, and we talk about it here just to get another lens. 9 times out of 10, I do agree with what I see in here, and we're very selective as well with our dream dictionary. So they're not all
Absolutely.
amazing, but
No,
we definitely pick the ones that, are pretty good. Okay,
I
so
agree. I definitely have a couple dream journals where I'm looking at these things and I'm like, is this what you went with? Like you can tell like it was written
yeah,
maybe by a very specific type of person during a very specific
yeah.
type of time period. But anyway,
Yeah, it's
the
all, and it's their biases, right, on these
yes,
symbols. So
exactly,
yeah,
which is the beauty of dream work.
right.
So what I got for caves is that they generally are the archetype of the unconscious or the womb.
Yes.
So it could represent a desire to retreat. It could represent the mysteries of the self, the need to enter and explore, or the beginning process of awareness and transformation. It's a place where one learns secrets or finds truth, leading to enlightenment or awareness. Um,
Mhm.
and it can also be represented as the doorway to the soul. So that's what I got from my interpretations.
Yeah, I like with the cave how it can represent either entrapment or enlightenment,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting how when you're in the space of feeling completely restricted and you have nothing, say in like a cave, so to speak, then you have really no choice but to go within, where you do experience, of course, the enlightenment. What comes to mind with caves for me is, so there is this popular, I guess you would say, excerpt from Plato, the philosopher, Plato's Republic, which is like his well-known like book, which is like of dialogues, right? And so it's the allegory of the cave. And basically within this allegory is that there's a group of prisoners who were like born in captivity. They were born prisoners within a cave, and they were essentially chained where they can only face one part of the cave wall, right? So they couldn't turn around and see anything behind them. And so behind them was a fire, like a burning fire. And then behind the fire was the, like, pretty much an open, I guess you could say, I don't know if it would be a window, but basically there were people walking by carrying things. And so their shadows were projected on the wall, and the prisoners in captivity would see the shadow, right? And they created all of these stories about the shadow figures. And it's said to, or he presents that at one point one of the prisoners was like freed. Basically he was like, and he had to go, and so he goes outside. First he turns around and they say like he sees a fire, and that's kind of blinding in a way. And then he's forced to leave the cave, and then he sees like that there's a different reality, and there's people. He understands like what the shadows kind of where they were coming from. And then he also has the experience with the sun that is completely just overwhelming, and that is supposed to indicate or symbolize that like supreme or divine or higher intelligence, so to speak. So then after having that experience, he wants to go back in the cave, and free everyone else. But they were worried about him, the prisoners, and they were like, oh, you've gone mad or whatever. And so they kind of don't believe him, and they want to stay in their comfort zone. And so basically this allegory essentially is speaking of just being in the cave, that space of the unknown, the space of the darkness, and then like these little elements of light that are indicating illumination and stepping outside of what's known and seeing like this grander perspective and reaching sort of enlightenment. And then when you go back into the cave, it's almost like you're coming back as like the guide or the savior or the sage to, you know, help everyone become enlightened. But then there's this resistance. So anyways, my point of all of this, see, this is my own personal bias on the cave, right? So I would kind of look at it from that perspective, but it does represent both spaces of imprisonment or entrapment and enlightenment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so of course you're gonna look to the context of the dream to get, you know, a deeper understanding of how that's showing up for you personally.
Yeah, absolutely. And like to kind of bounce off that too, that last sentence of your perspective and what it shows up to you. I mean, I've had dreams where caves are, you know, very, very long and made of stone. I've had dreams where they're smaller, shorter, they don't go deeply, and they're made of ice. And like these different aspects can add to the layers of what the cave within your dream space means for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you know what also it brings to mind is a book that I'm rereading, Jitterbug Perfume by Tom Collins, which I got when we were in Ithaca.
Mm-hmm.
And there's one part in the book where um there was like the main character, he basically ended up coming across a cave like in his like traveling journey. And pretty much he was fleeing some like another city. But anyways, he ended up at this cave with these people that were very wise, very just like, you know, on another dimension pretty much. And he had this like horrific like experience with them. And but it was also very profound and like mystical. And he got out of it and he met with another lady who heard about them and was like, oh, you've been there, and like basically take me. And they ended up going. He didn't want to go back, but they ended up going because of circumstances. And the people were gone, but they were in the cave. They had to go into the cave for salvation. Otherwise, they were going to die. And they stayed in the cave for maybe like 7 years. And basically, through their experience in the cave and eating what those, you know, beings were eating and whatever energy they had, I'm getting goosebumps, but whatever energy they had in the cave, they ended up like exhibiting or embodying that vibration, and they learn how to like basically not die. They learned immortality, and they can't even say how they learned it. It was just through existing in that space, right? And then moving on. So I also have that profound perspective of the cave. And so I haven't had any dreams with caves in them, but I'm really curious of like,
Really?
you know, no, I couldn't find any and I couldn't remember. I didn't go through all of my dreams in my current dream journal, but I'm pretty sure I don't recall having any in there. So I don't think
Well,
I've had not that I could remember.
the only reason I was so shocked was because I didn't think I had any either.
Yeah.
And then I came across like towards the very end of a dream, a cave. But as we're sitting here talking, my memories of dreams I've had of caves are like coming through. And it's just like it's weird like when that happens because all of a sudden I'm like you say something that triggers my memory of a dream that I had, and it all comes through like it happened last night. So it was just, I was right there with you for a second. Like, I really didn't think I had anything I could use.
Yeah, I'm thinking, you know, it's funny. I'm thinking about there's a song that I was listening today on repeat, Fleet Foxes.
Mm-hmm.
And I put it in my story, but I can't remember if they mentioned a cave, but I know it's coming down from the mountaintop. And but the energy of it is like, I mean, we're coming out of like that rest in winter and we're coming into spring, we're coming out of dormancy. And it made me think of the book that I was just mentioning that I'm reading. And then now it's making me think of like it all feels connected and it's coming out of like this resting place, this dark place, and coming into the light, like this grand rising. And so I'm curious about, do you want to share like any
Yeah.
or yeah.
Yeah, so I like I said, I've had several. I thought I didn't have any cave dreams, but then as I was looking through my journals and I was sitting with my memories and whatnot, things started coming to the surface. So um, the one that just came through though, that triggered a memory of a dream, I'm gonna tell because it to me, I'm immediately like, I kind of can, as I'm going through it for the first time in a while, understand where I was in my life and what it represented for me. So I'll go ahead and tell that one.
Yeah.
So in this dream, there was me and a bunch of people, some dream people, but a lot of people I knew, like neighbors, family, friends, townies from my life. So a combination of a bunch of people. And something had happened where we all had to drive to this cave. Um,
Mm.
and we all like got out of our cars with all of our stuff and started kind of like getting situated in the front of the cave. Now it was dimly lit. It was kind of small, like it wasn't huge, but it was enough for people to, I guess, sit comfortably. And if you went in the front and you looked to the side, the left, as soon as you came in, you could see that the path continues far down, but it goes to almost like a void. But what's right in front of us, this one room, is dimly lit and feels quote unquote safe. That hallway felt very uncomfortable, very unsafe, but you didn't know where it went to. There were no signs past a certain point of anything. And you could feel there was some kind of presence in that area. Well, the people who joined me with this experience, taking refuge and shelter within this front of the cave, started to kind of disrespect the cave. You know, there was a lot of fighting that started, because when it comes to disaster, it's inevitable that people start to panic and then they start fighting about different things. I mean, it happens in day to day, but this was happening in my dream. People started fighting. People started being nasty towards each other. They started kind of throwing trash around the cave, and they started to wander a little bit down the hall. But the people who wandered down the hall were executed by the nothingness. And then that aspect of the dream, I started to notice, all this going on, of course, and I started to stop going down this area, stop going down this hall, stop putting yourself at risk. This is dangerous, and nobody was really listening to me. So we would lose a couple people here and there, and finally, I got to a point where I was like, if you guys aren't going to respect this area, then we need to leave because we keep losing people and it's not doing anything for like rebuilding our society. And like I left the cave and started walking out to all the cars, and that's when I woke up. But I just thought that was a really interesting dream to come through while we were sitting here chatting.
Mm.
And for me, it absolutely represented aspects of myself that are really, really deep in my own brain, my own unconscious. And I think that there was only a point of my growth and my progress that I could make with other people along with me.
Mm.
And that hallway was representing a path I needed to take on my own.
Mm.
So, and I just like, I really feel that. I really feel that, especially I had this dream years ago, maybe max 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And now looking back at how my path has gone, I absolutely see that there was an avoidance around going deeper within myself and trying to latch on to the people around me so I didn't feel alone in this journey when I needed the isolation to understand myself better.
Yeah. Wow. I am fascinated by the long, like hallway, so to speak, or just that part of the cave that went into the void.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, like because you came into it, so you know where the other side is. So that is like, there's some elements of comfort in that because it's known. But then it's like, to me, for me, like with the people getting executed, going into the nothingness, I'm like, oh, well, what if they're popping into like somewhere else, like popping out, like they're leaving? Um, and that's just my own personal experience with like the void or like those long, dark tunnel aspects. And it could be like kind of like cave like, it's like you're traveling, to like it's like almost like a portal, which I
Yeah.
mean, we get into the void and everything. So that was just really interesting to me. Um, where it's like the darkness going deeper and deeper into the unknown or deeper within, and then staying close to the light is its own, representation as well. So it's kind of like, again, with that choice point that we were talking about, and it is like that duality, like light and dark with this cave, and it's like, how deep in do you want to go? um like you said, like going alone was, something that you felt that resonated in that. So that makes sense.
No, I completely agree with that. And I even was thinking like too, the aspect of people being executed, maybe that's an aspect where, everybody reaches this specific point where they kind of execute and let go aspects of themselves that are no longer needed, no longer necessary, no longer benefiting them. And
Wow.
so what you were really seeing was the aspect you were attached to that they were moving on from,
Yeah.
and like how scary that is for yourself.
Yeah, I like that you said executed by nothingness, because it came in my mind. Like I wrote that down, but then just not listening, I was like, oh, wait, well, who, like, what was executing them? And I was
Well,
like, oh, yeah, yeah,
nothing like I
yeah,
there was
exactly.
nothing, there was no indication aside from these people traveling down that path and then being executed. There was nothing, no physical forms, nothing there that was a threat. It
Mhm.
was just the darkness. It was just that. And it's interesting too, because I almost feel like in my dream my choice was to get everybody out of this cave and go elsewhere,
Yeah.
rather than leaving, like getting everybody out and going back in for myself,
Yeah.
unless that was the plan, you know to disconnect and have that separation. But I don't know, because I never went back into it, the
Right.
dream.
Yeah. And then you came out. That was a good share. I don't have
Thank you.
any cave dreams. So I think we'll move on to garden. So I love this. Now we've come out of the cave, this resting area, this womb, this place of protection, and also can at times feel a bit restrictive, which I feel this is like that's like the perfect symbol for the energy that we're in right now. Like all of us, at least here in the Northern Hemisphere, we're coming out of that resting period and just like our own little caves, whether it's like within us or like our actual homes. And now we're getting out a little bit, and we're stepping into almost like this garden energy, this growth. And so essentially what I have here in my notes is that gardens tend to symbolize personal growth, creativity, and can also represent a state of your inner world. And yeah, so of course the way in which the garden shows up will also give you an indication of what that might mean. So that's from one of my online journals. I'm just gonna glance here at this is like my favorite book, The Dream Dictionary from A to Z. Um, so let's see here. She mentions that the garden can refer to your inner feelings, areas of potential growth and change, and what it is you are trying to cultivate in your life. Other interpretations suggest that dreams of gardens express a desire to be closer to nature or your natural self. Some dream gardens are symmetrical with a central point, and that can kind of give like this mandala type symbolism or like an inner wholeness of your true self.
Yep.
And to dream of a garden that reproduces its form may indicate inner healing after a period of unease or illness. So yeah, there's a lot of different, ways that dreams can show up. And it's definitely speaks to more of the feminine attributes and qualities of the wildness that need to be possibly need to be tamed to create some sort of order. Yeah. So what do you have over there for
I
gardens?
I pretty much have the same things. I would say that, like um the way that the garden shows up in your dreams, whether it's like, dried or, blossoming and blooming or overgrown, can represent different things. Overgrown, a lot of weeds, a lot of stuff that could represent, a loss of control in your life, where, that dried up lack of, any kind of fertility could represent really needing to pay attention to your inner self and your inner life. Grace and harmony. I mean, what I found that was interesting was there's a lot of this is a very common dream symbol to have within like pregnant women, which I find very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But pretty much what you mentioned is what I got from that as well. There's a lot of different ways that it can come through depending on how it shows up in your dream.
Yeah, I didn't have any garden dreams. I wish I had garden dreams when I was pregnant. I love garden dreams, and my example of my garden dream was basically, well, I have two examples. So I'll share the one that involves insects after we do the insects, but basically this is one I had in my head because it was a lucid dream, and I don't know why. Like, it's interesting now. I'm realizing my lucid dreams, they tend to start out with me working in like, or being in a restaurant. And maybe that's because I haven't worked in a restaurant in so long. Now I know that I'm dreaming. I'm like, why? Like this sucks and I'm dreaming. Like, why is this happening?
This sucks.
Because this dream I think I had, or this lucid dream had to been like a year or so ago. So, but yeah, I realized I was lucid, and it was definitely in the point where I was still not going along with the dream. So I was like, oh, okay, I'm definitely not working in this restaurant. And so I wanted to be in a fairy garden. I wanted to be in, yeah, I think I just called forth a fairy garden, and it turned into like almost like a mushroom garden, and it was really beautiful. I mean, it was like I didn't really get detail with my request, and so the way it showed up was there was it made me feel like it felt like a French garden. There was
Ooh.
like fountains, and there was just, I remember though, it was like very, not necessarily overgrown, but everything was just like, I remember more so like less flowers and more like trees and like like weeping willows, like definitely
Oh.
the willows and mushrooms and water. And like I can see some flowers and like those old school like stone benches.
Mm-hmm.
And I was summoning someone there romantically. So then it was, yeah, it was just like a really feel good dream. But I remember that the person that I summoned in, it was them, but like I couldn't get the full version of them. Like it was their essence, but I couldn't like visually, it wasn't them. And I was trying to change it I'm like, no, wait, this isn't like the person. We need to fix this. And it was so much focus on that because I wanted my whole perfect scenery. So that was that. Um,
What a lovely dream. Oh,
yeah,
that sounds
yeah, it was
like such an incredible experience, like surreal. Like no, I I'm very envious because that dream sounds so beautiful.
and the way that, so it was basically, I was coming out of the restaurant and I was like walking not very far, but it was kind of like I was standing on the property of the restaurant. And I was like, I really, I want to be in a garden right now, like a fairy garden. And it took a second for it to change, but then it did. And like the way I entered the garden for whatever reason was like I rolled down the hill like to into the garden like a child. You know how you would like roll. And so it was like
Yes.
really sweet. It was a
Oh
really
my
good
God, I
dream,
love
but it
that.
just didn't satisfy me with the person. And I'm like, no. And then, eventually I was so focused on that, like emotionally, that of course it collapsed. So, but yeah, but garden, that aside, the garden was amazing, and it felt really, um, Yeah, it felt like inner peace. It felt really serene. And it felt like an escape, definitely, especially when I'm thinking about what I was actually feeling around that period of time. It was definitely one of those escape type dreams.
Yep. All of the dreams that I've had within a gar like that happen with a garden, it's never the dream isn't ever based in the garden. It's like it's a quick walkthrough. It's
Yeah.
almost like passing by. Um, so it's interesting that you really got to spend some time in this like lush, beautiful, flourishing fairy tale. I'm just so envious. I love that for you so much. Um, my gardens aren't really the dreams that I've had with gardens. The examples I have are like kind of shit. Like
Yeah.
it's kind of like definitely leaning more in that you really need to pay more attention, like water your garden, pay more attention to your life. And, in the regards to my life at different points when I've had these dreams, it definitely was me neglecting myself and my mental and emotional well-being. So right off like the bat, the first one that I'll share is simply this giant garden. Think of like the size of a cornfield. And it was just in the beginning of this dream, and it was blistering hot out, and it was exhausting to walk through. And when like it's summer and the grass is kind of the hay and grass and stuff wherever you are is very like
Mm,
intertwined but like rough and
yeah.
scratchy, and like you try to walk through like a field and you get caught and like tripping over different things. It was like that, where like the sun was
Yeah.
blistering so hard, it dried everything out, and I was tripping over these like roots of what should have been beautiful growth and was just dead. And I was walking through it, and the further that I went and walked through it, the more garbage was like appearing. So there was just like torn garbage
Oh,
bags everywhere and garbage thrown, and you could just see like all this stuff. And then halfway to the destination of walking through this area, I came across these two really overweight people in lazy boys, and they were looking. I know it was the
wow.
I know this is the weirdest freaking thing, but they were watching something behind me, which was odd because I didn't turn around to look. I just was like, they were talking a little bit, kind of bantering back and forth with like garbage around them and sodas and like your stereotypical like American type um what's the word that I'm looking for? Like exaggeration of what America's people look like in like a political comics or something. Like that's what was came up in my dream as I'm walking through this garden. And it's just the trash is more and more piled up as I walk past them and keep walking towards where I see like a building that I'm trying to get to. So that is the first experience that I want to share. The other experience it is kind of equally as odd in the sense of like the dryness, the heat, the dried up plants and garbage.
Mm-hmm.
So I was in this like very old looking theater, and it was dark in the theater where you walked in the back, and there are people here and there looking at the screen, but there's no screen. Like as you get closer and closer to the front, the theater stage is actually opened up, so there's trees and stuff, and it's opened up to an outdoor space. It's almost like a portal or some kind of like threshold to an outdoor area. And I walk through it, and there's trees kind of spread out quite a bit. I wouldn't really call it a forest, and it had a lot of like garden elements to it. So like flowers, but they were dead. and like, maybe like fruits and veggies that were kind of trying, but were dead.
Yeah,
And
they're
as
like
I'm walking,
drying up, dried
yeah,
out.
dried up and like dead. And like as I'm walking around these few trees in this within this garden, you see pieces of trash everywhere. And I start walking further and further down that path in this garden that's dried up and dead. And my heart starts racing, and I start to feel the presence of something dangerous around the bend. So I run back down that path and into the theater again. Um, so it's really interesting. I chose those two because they, not that I have a whole lot of dreams with gardens that are like, flourishing, but the the parallels of these two dreams are very interesting.
Yeah, so I mean, definitely like the drying out, like depletion. I feel like that's kind of like a an obvious interpretation of nourishment, of self-care. Um, literally hydrate. It's like
Literally.
right? But yeah, so here it says it could also represent, missed opportunities, emotional struggles with a wild or overgrown garden. It may indicate chaos in your life, but it can also suggest untapped potential and natural creativity.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe, putting a little bit more care into that and nourishing that could be something that comes up, which is funny because I just did a reading for someone today, and that was literally, it was depletion, it was desert came in, depletion came in, and it was all like tied into creativity and like nourishing your passion projects. So it's
Yeah.
like it definitely, I could see that with this kind of dream too.
Well, and
uh,
right off the bat, honestly, the dryness and the emotional, the need. I am somebody who has a very difficult time with my emotional release.
mhm.
Like I like know what I'm feeling, but it doesn't express. It
Yeah,
stays in my head. And that's something that I've struggled with for a very, very long time. And there were points in my life where that would only come out when I was pushed to my limit. And it
yeah,
wasn't like a good cry, it was like a fucking mental breakdown.
yeah,
um,
yeah,
and that's still something that I struggle with, is releasing.
yeah,
And so I feel like a part of that, the gardens that showed up in my dream, had to do with needing to water it,
yeah,
literally feeling my emotions.
yeah.
And,
Water yourself, like
water, yes, like when you said hydration, I was like, wait, no, we're on the right track
like
with
yes,
this,
water.
because maybe not like literal hydration, but hydration of my being with like my emotions. And it aligns so much. And especially like the last one where I felt danger around the corner. And it almost felt like I felt danger in that, in allowing myself to be emotional, and ran away from it, ran back into a cold, like very structured place rather than a more organic and paying attention and cleaning up and helping myself in this like garden of life and self.
Yeah. No, that makes so much sense. And like when I'm thinking about when you're saying almost like you could trip over, like, just the how overgrown it was too, that feels like, yeah, just needing some organization, maybe cutting back on some things, you know what I
Yep,
mean? Like literally. So yeah, just that own self-tending and self-care was seems like really important.
absolutely.
Awesome. Okay, so we're going to move on to our final symbol for this chat, and it is around insects. And so, insects and dreams, what I have here, can often symbolize small but persistent issues, anxieties, or thoughts that are quote unquote bugging you in your waking life, which this is so on point. Yeah, so they can come in, which I was actually surprised. And of course, it definitely depends on your connection to the insect as well. Like right now, thank you, Alexis. I'm wearing my little crystal glass cicada necklace. So if I saw a cicada in um my dreams, I would be freaking excited, and I would be beside myself. They would not be pests. Um but yeah, so it definitely depends on what type of insects in your relation and emotion towards them. Like, of course, spiders for a lot of people are just like eek.
Mm-hmm.
Ants can be like really annoying. They can stress you out because they're so freaking busy. Yeah. So what do you have over there for insects?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I have similar things, the feeling of, you know, that aspect of feeling like something's bugging you or annoyance. I also got the feeling of insignificance, the need to sort out different aspects of your life, and in some aspects, divine messaging, which I find interesting and makes total
Logan.
sense.
Yeah.
For ants, yeah, like, cicada or a butterfly or a moth or a caterpillar, which I have down here. There's more of like a, um, whether they're divine messages or messages from your unconscious conscious, like they're very important and very um, indicative of growth. But with ants, you have the annoyance of it, feeling insignificant, like you're a part of a big community or big group, and you might not be expressing yourself as yourself truly because you're in with this pattern of everybody else. It could represent being too busy, like you had said. Ants are always working, so it could come through as a representation of you feeling overworked, drained, or needing to sort things out within your inner outer self. But on the same side, ants could represent strength and resilience. When you think about an ant can carry an immense amount of weight on its back. Like it's some
Yeah,
crazy
no, they're
amount, like 10
incredible.
or
They're
10 to
incredible.
100 times their own weight they are able to, so it can come through as like strength. Butterflies, when you think of butterflies, you think of transformation. You could
Beauty.
yeah, it represents the soul,
Yeah.
freedom, rebirth, the inner psyche, being social. um Bees, you might feel a need to belong, like you need to find a community to belong to.
Mhm.
um Organizing your life, finding new energy, new creative ideas emerging, higher um, emotions. It could also represent royalty. You think of queen bee. It could represent that sacred connection to the divine. It could also represent issues with identity, kind of along, like, what's that saying? It's like bees, they'll protect their hive, but once you get in, they see you as everyone else. So it's
Uh,
that issue with identity, that need for
I, yeah.
for individuality.
Yeah, especially if you're part of a hive or a group
Yes,
like that. Yeah.
hive mentality, where like you all think the
Company.
same and do the
Yeah.
same and act the
Yeah.
same. You might be feeling a need to break free from that. Moths represent, creative aspects of the shadow, so they're considered like the dark side of, like, what
Yeah.
what you would consider the shadow side of, like, the butterfly. So it's
Yeah.
more of like the creativity within the shadow coming through and seeking spirituality and wholeness, maybe even waking up, having an awakening. Roaches, some think, that comes through as like disgust, or like, you know repulsiveness towards yourself, but it could also represent tenacity. I mean, think, roaches are one of the hardest things to get rid of, one of the hardest things to kill, and they're one of the
Yes.
oldest creatures on earth. Like, um spiders, feelings of anxiety and fear or being trapped. um or
But
even,
also weavers.
yes, I was going to say, or
Weavers.
even like that creativity, the want for putting your energy towards creation itself, and the patience to do it. So there's so many aspects of insects within your dreams, and they could represent so many different things, which is why it's important, like, we mentioned before with the other two symbols, like what's the context?
Yeah.
What is the color of these insects? How are they acting? How are they treating you? What energies are you getting from them? Are they in swarms? Are they singled out? Like, it's really important to pay attention to these things because it'll get you closer to your own interpretation of what these messages mean to you.
So I have my dream is, well, it's not interesting, but we'll make but it's funny
Urania.
because it's very short. Um, and it is, yeah, wait, let's see here. Um, all right, so my mother was cleaning out. Okay, I had this actually almost no, a year and a half ago. So October in 2023. So anyways, my mother was cleaning out the cupboard and she came across the single roach. The roach jumped across the kitchen several times, behaving more like a cricket than a roach. I was confused and asked my mother if she was sure it was a roach, and she confirmed yes and said some roaches behave that way. It was normal. And then I made a note here. In waking life, there's a single roach living in my cupboard. I don't see it often, and I refuse to kill it as I believe it is a messenger of some kind. My kitchen is extremely clean, so I'm not very worried. And for the record, I did not, yeah, that roach came and went. So it didn't end up turning into like a big problem.
Good, good.
So I think that's interesting, but I remember I was really like in my feelings about it because it's a roach and that's gross. And I've had bad experiences with roaches, and one of them was when I was had in a possession experience. I was living in a place that was in, yeah, anyways. Um, so I was like a roach, but that was interesting that it was like moving around like a cricket, and it was different. Like it was a messenger or something because yeah, I never like I did it as a test and I was like, you
Mm-hmm.
know what? Um, yeah, I'm not, I just felt like I didn't want to kill it. And there were other things going on around that was like that felt like some sort of sign. I can't remember what specifically, but yeah. So
Wow. I kind of love that. And I love that you didn't kill it because I had one singular roach that came in my home the one night we were in the bathroom and I was like, oh my fucking God, it's a roach. Like, I just didn't, I don't know. And we had just read about how they like respond to you. And
yeah.
both my husband and I were having a very difficult time because we were like, well, we don't want this to be a problem, but like it, what do we do? Like, I think my husband ended up like flushing him down the toilet, but
Yeah.
I'm sure he survived from that because they literally freaking
Yeah.
survive anything. But it was like, do we squash it or do we not squash it? I mean, they're so
They're kind of gross to squash too.
they're gross, but they're just so reactive to like you. Like the I mean,
Yeah.
all the more you pay attention, bugs are very similar to like any animal in the way that they are responsive. I mean, they show curiosity, they show fear, they show different things. So I mean, I was at work last year, I think it was last summer or last spring, and there was a fly that was in the shop, which we always get like one or two flies in the shop. The doors are always opening, it just happens. And he landed on my phone and I like talked to him and I was like being all, normal, and or I guess you wouldn't consider that normal, but I was having a conversation with this freaking fly. And then the rest of
Oh
the day,
yeah.
the fly hung around. Like, I was over at the table cutting mat boards, and he was sitting on the table like next to me, and like getting close to my phone to like hang out. And he would get on the back of my phone, and I would talk to him, and you'd see like him shifting his head. Like, it's so there's just so much more to the beings on this earth than we give them credit for. But it's just it's very interesting dealing with bugs now that you're like kind of out of that hierarchy of like they're not intelligent.
Well,
It's
I
odd.
literally was coexisting with I would say since, what is this, March? Since probably like January, like the end of January, I've been coexisting like with carpenter ants, which we see them every, like not all the time, but pretty much like this time of year, actually, we start seeing them more. And but it was a really cold winter. And so we started seeing them, and like primarily in the bathroom. And I was just like, okay, just stay in the bathroom. If I don't see you anywhere else, like I don't care. Like I don't really get freaked out by ants. But then they were like more and more and more. And I was just like, oh my God, we're gonna have to do something. Like I started spraying
Yes.
like lemon and vinegar. And then, but it was funny because like my daughter, she would like just hang out in the bathroom with them and play with them and pick, because they don't bite or anything. Well,
Yeah.
you don't feel them. If these ones don't bite, like the really small ones do, and you feel it. But these ones, they're the big carpenters, and they don't really bite.
No.
So she would like pick them up and be playing with them and stuff. So they were really entertaining with for her, and she like loves bugs. And so we let them hang out, and but it was starting to get like, because they just started dying and stuff. I mean, who knows what their life cycle and everything's going on. But luckily, like today was really warm, and it's been warmer, and they haven't, like we've seen a lot less of them.
Hmm.
And so I'm just like, wow, okay, we did it. Like I didn't have to like get anyone to come in and like,
Yep.
take care of it. I hate doing that stuff. And I don't want to like live with the chemicals and the toxins, and it's a whole thing.
I know. I completely
So, but it's
understand.
like, yeah, once you like coexist or you make that connection with the insects or just any animals in general, but definitely insects are interesting. It's really hard to, like I like, if I don't want a spider in the house, I like, my daughter has like bug catching like tong things where, it's like almost like a scooper and it closes. So
Yep.
I'll be catching like spiders and like put them with them. I'm like, I can't kill them. I'll catch like, whatever random bug. And yeah, so I wonder how they would show up in my dream now. That dream, the whole dream felt really relative and on point with my energy about roaches, but then also my energy at the time about like, I feel like this has like there's something here. Like it's just one. And I know when they're like, oh, when you see one, there's more. But like literally, I mean, luckily that was the one.
Yeah.
And, you know, but ugh, I didn't, how it is. Like,
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard because there's so many like stigmas around them, they don't
yeah.
look cute to a lot of people. You don't know that much about them, so like there's more frightening than anything. But like the older I get, the more I learn to cohabit with them. Like we'll let the cellar spiders hang out at the bottom of
Oh
the
yeah.
stairs
Yeah.
by
I
the
don't,
door, and
yeah.
I'm like,
I
I'll
don't
just
mind
let them
anymore.
hang out and do their thing. And I'll name them and I'll say hi to them, and I'll kind of get mad at them for not eating the bugs more because some
Right?
will come
Like
up
you
to
get
the
these
I'm like,
mosquitoes.
you are right there. You're at the entrance and you're not catching these motherfuckers. Um,
Yeah.
but it's funny too because like there was a couple weeks ago we had a big fly in the house, and George tried to kill it and missed. Like he tried to kill it, scared it, and it missed. He missed, and then it flew away. Whatever. It came and bit him. Didn't
No.
touch me. Didn't bother me.
I swear, like everything, everyone is evolving. Like they're like the flies. I mean, they're like, look, we're sick and tired.
Yes. It's like we're not trying to hurt you. We're
Everything is
just trying to
evolving.
exist. And like I get that more and more as I get older, and I'm like more and more reluctant. Like I've never been good at killing things.
Yeah.
But I feel like as I'm getting older, like I can't do it. I can't do it. Like someone
Yeah.
else has to do
Especially,
it.
I'm always
I
like, their friends are gonna come and get me, like with spiders. I'm like, no,
can't.
I'll just grab it and put it outside. Like their friends will come and get me while I'm sleeping, like or something. So I'm like, I don't want any bad juju. Like, especially with spiders, I respect you. And
Yep. Well, it's
yeah,
funny.
we have the cellar spiders too. The ones that really bother me, I would say we have here, you probably have them there in Pennsylvania, but the yellow sacks. and
Oh
they're
no, we
like
don't.
almost translucent, but they don't get really big, but they're basically hunters. So they're always moving around. And when we first moved in this house, I don't think anyone lived here for a while. And so, like, it was, I mean, this time that year, it was like spiders were out and they were having like nests and oh, and it was like, yeah, it was like
Yeah, we don't get
in
those.
Sidori, like she was sleeping with me, and there was one night where I pulled the cover up and there was like a spider like crawling on her leg in the bed, and I was just like, oh my God. But also I'm thinking about what I was experiencing as far as like the spiritual aspect of that, like the type of fear and whatnot. So that made a lot of sense. Like
Yeah. Well, it's
experience.
funny we landed on spiders because spiders are a lot of the dreams that I had when I was a kid involved spiders, and it was actually more like nightmares.
Yeah.
I came from a household where nobody, like my dad was very persistent about nobody killing anything in the house just to bring it outside. So
Mhm.
I was afraid of spiders, but I didn't kill them. I was in this
Yeah.
weird like in between space where I was horrified of them. And like I had watched like some movies that did not help the situation. So I think I was like 5 or 6 and I watched Eight-Legged Freaks, which you watch now and it's so stupid and goofy. But like when you're that young
Yeah.
and there's like some chemical toxin that gets into the local water that makes all the spiders like 100,000 times their size. And then you have like underground caves that are filled with these monster sized spiders. Like it gets to you as a kid. And like there were other movies where like there was this one movie called The Mist. I don't remember. I was a little older when I
That
saw that.
sounds familiar, but I can't
But
think.
one of so basically a black hole opens because the government's testing something stupid and they open a black hole and all these like multi-dimensional creatures come through. And it's a horror movie. And in one of the creatures is this like alien spider being, and the one scene, trigger warning, graphic and gross and just ew, they go into a pharmacy where like you have to be quiet and you have to make no noise and you have to have weapons because you have to fight off these things. One of the people that tried escaping was up against the wall and he had all these ew.
Oh,
Anyway,
yeah. There go my dreams for
yeah,
tonight.
it's like he just
I
started
already got the
fighting with
visual.
spiders. And like, so I'm seeing these movies where it's horrifying. Like the way they portray spiders is horrifying. So every single night I would push the blankets up under my ankles and feet and legs all the way up to my shoulders, have my head in my to make sure that there was no way that anything could get into my bed. And then I would have nightmares about it and it would wake me up with a cold sweat.
God.
Never
Well, there you
anymore.
go, everyone. You're welcome. We hope you have sweet dreams
I'm
tonight.
so sorry. I'm so sorry. It's look, I
No,
warned you. I said trigger
no,
warning.
yeah, no. This is a great way to like wrap up the insect dreams and just this chat tonight. Yeah, I mean, we can go deeper with each of these in like their own single episode
Yeah.
as well. We would love to hear your dreams about insects, gardens, and caves.
Yeah.
There was a garden one that maybe I'll share in next week's episode, because of time and everything. But yeah, because I thought the dreams were, and I thought the insects were in the same dream. It was the same dream, but like two different parts. So I'll read that next time. Oh, Richard's here. Richard says, peace and love to y'all and my Spidey friends. Yeah, peace and love. So yeah, any last words, points, anything you want to share before we hop off here?
I just would love to see what you guys, the viewers, the listeners, have with your experience with these topics in your dreams. You know, like I said, like Urania and I both said, these come through in so many different ways and can mean so many different things depending on the context and how it's perceived and how, you know, like I said, like the environment, the energy, the feelings, the colors, the emotions, the way that the beings are acting, the way that the caves feel, what the caves are made out of, what's in the garden. It's pay attention to these things because they all mean something different. So please, if you feel so inclined and comfortable, share your dreams with the dream symbols we shared today, and we'll be really excited to read them.
Yes, that'll be so amazing. It's always good to get like, other people's dreams and perspectives and just to hear, what other people are experiencing. Um, yeah, awesome. So I'm definitely starting to trail off. I'm sorry. I don't know if that made
No,
sense there.
no, I'm right there with you.
But yeah, thank you everyone for being here. Thank you for supporting us and listening and liking the videos and subscribing. We're just really excited to share with you all. And so, yeah, next week is going to be our new moon, dark moon reflections. And we're going to talk about the previous dream cycle, our dreams, the energy. And so we would love to have you join us live in the chat to share what's been coming up with you. If you want to share a dream with us, you can definitely do that. Message us on Instagram or send us an email at theinnerversepodcast@gmail.com and we can share your dream and discuss it, in our next episode. So I think we covered everything. And yeah, we'll talk to you guys in the next live.
Yep.
Have a good night. Have sweet dreams. And yeah, we'll see you later.
Good night.
Night. Okay. Yay.
So we definitely went over an hour. I